You're listening to Yoked, Conversations with Real-Life Yogis, produced by Kelly Sunrose and Samadhi Rush. The mission of this podcast is to share the teachings of yoga as applied to everyday life by real people through interviews, conversations, Q&A sessions, and more. Learn more at yokedpodcast.com. In today's episode, we will do our seasonal check-in. During this podcast, I'll talk a little bit about my process for checking in periodically and what specifically is coming up for me as I transition from autumn into winter. Thank you so much for being here. If you have a suggestion, a request, or a question, please be in touch by emailing me at sunroseyoga@gmail.com. And just a reminder, since we still are in the month of December, for this month, 15% of the proceeds from sales from the Sunrose Yoga shop will go to Black Lives Matter, Planned Parenthood, and the Sacred Stone Legal Defense Fund. Thanks for being here. You can check out all of the offerings at sunroseyogashop.com. And there is, of course, a link in the show notes over at yokedpodcast.com. Thanks again for being here. So hi everybody, thanks for being here today. I'm really excited to check in with our seasonal podcast. Some of you have been here for these before, and I'm excited for us to be here together again, especially after what for me is perhaps the most challenging of seasons, autumn. So the seasonal check-in for me is at least a two-part process. First, I reflect on the previous season, and second, I look forward to the incoming one. And this also, within those two main categories, I kind of parse things out a little bit. And I look at the qualities of the season itself, like what are the essential and elemental qualities of, for example, autumn and winter. And then I look at what self-care systems I used to thrive and manage during those particular seasons. And then also I look at what I was hoping to explore in my practice. And I use the word practice very broadly, as you might imagine if you've been here before. And within that, there are usually some lessons learned. I'll ask myself what worked well, what worked not so great, and what did I learn? And then whatever else seems to come up. And I've been doing this for a number of years, and it really aligns with my process-oriented work or my trust in the process. I find that when I'm constantly or continually going back and reviewing the decisions I'm making, the projects I'm working on, it helps me make better decisions for the future, and it gives me a more refined sense of, sort of location, where I am in the universe. And a student of mine and I were just talking about this week, that it's definitely not intended to sort of go back to the previous season and check off boxes as far as like, oh, well, I had hoped to accomplish these things. Did I do them or did I not do them? It's more of a way of saying, okay, this is what I was hoping to do or what I thought was possible. How did things actually shake out? And to start to get really clear on, you know, my participation in nature and my part in nature, which might sound a little bit out there, but it's more about noticing what is happening rather than necessarily congratulating or punishing myself for what did or did not get accomplished. It's about being a little more realistic about what I'm doing, if that makes any sense. So all of that is to say is this is a multi-part process that, you know, I'm going through at least seasonally. And then I do a big one at the close and beginning of the year. So in Ayurveda, there's a principle that says that if we live one season to the fullest, the next one will sort of naturally pull us in or naturally beckon us. And I know this to be true, really true in my own body. I know too that when things are left undone, unresolved, or unprocessed, they linger, they come back, and ultimately they keep me from the present moment. This, of course, is also the basis of yoga philosophy. Our samskaras, our patterns, keep us in a holding pattern of reliving loops and grooves, partially or completely blind to our true nature. Those are the kleshas. And basically, we, in that space, are at least one step removed from the present moment. We are in chitta vritti. So the processing may seem arduous, this sort of taking the time to notice where I've been, where I am now, what am I noticing? It might seem arduous, it might seem meaningless until you actually experience the potential in spreading out your samskaras and looking at them, offering yourself a choice as to whether and how to buff them to subtler and subtler states. You know, we've talked extensively about my struggles in fall, and knowing the struggle is only part of it. Choosing how to act and then acting is another part of relaxing the grip of some of those patterns. And I know that this might sound like rarefied work for, you know, professional yogis or for elitist scholars. But as we've discussed many times in the past, this work is necessary in order to do the big work. And it's not separate from the big work once you really sink into it. And that's the point of all of this. We know the self, love the self, in order to get over the self and to do the work of the planet, the work of the universe, the big work. And it's all big work. Okay, so that said, I also would like to acknowledge that my own personal repertoire of self-care systems and strategies may sound quite complicated or even alien. And they aren't to me, of course. Otherwise, I would never do them. And that is, I think, a key component. Like, in order for something to work, it has to be something you will do. And trust me, if it were too difficult or too arduous, I wouldn't do it. I just wouldn't. And so, like I said, the only things that actually work are the things that we do. So, begin where you are And my own practices reflect 20 years of experimentation with yoga, meditation, Ayurveda, and other practices. And all of this work comes back to the simple strategy of asking, what am I doing? And what are the effects of it? What do I notice? For example, I drink a cup of tea. What do I feel? And you can ask that question at different points in time. You might ask immediately while you're drinking the tea, what do I feel? You might ask again 20 minutes later, what do I feel? And over time, you can start to notice the effects on you sort of in a system-wide way. And you can start to notice whether the results or the effects are in alignment with how you want to be feeling or how you hope to be living. And using that information, you can decide whether to keep doing the thing, whether to change it a bit, or completely let go of a particular habit. Now that aspect, the habit acquisition and relinquishment, is a whole nother conversation for a different day. But I do definitely have some books that I will recommend in the show notes on that point. But the point is to notice what you're doing and how it makes you feel, and to ask yourself, is this how I want to be feeling or how I want to be living? And then adjust accordingly. So, autumn reflections. Now, as we've discussed, I'm very transparent about my challenges with autumn as a person prone to the Vata constitution, the air and space, dryness and cold. It's tricky for me because autumn is the season of wind and dryness and big temperature drops. It's the season of hyperaction and frenzied preparation for winter. In the past, it has been a time of high anxiety, exhaustion, and fatigue for me. And, if you'd like to explore some of those podcasts and posts in the past, I'll link to them. But I'm happy to say that in 2016, I feel like I sort of have fall figured out for now. And so what worked? My strategies for autumn really worked this year. And so the self-care strategies that I'm talking about are daily body oiling, oil pulling, spending a lot of attention on my feet, taking the 10-minute power bath. I also spent mega time in nature. So correct. Also drinking warm drinks, eating warm foods, and exercising every day in I would say moderate way. Like, I definitely sweat every day, but I wasn't overdoing it, like totally exhausted by exertion. And all of that really worked for me, even in spite of traveling a bit, even in spite of it being an especially dry autumn here in the Northwest, and even especially with having, some additional sources of anxiety. I talked a little bit, I think, about how my daughter started kindergarten this year, and we had a little bit of a sketchy experience, and she switched schools about 3 weeks in. So there were some additional stressors there. And I feel like my self-care strategies worked. Also, what really helped this year was looking at what was happening in nature and remembering and reminding myself that I'm a part of it. The squirrels in particular this year were very calming to me because they were scurrying around, readying themselves for winter, and there too was I, right there with them, preparing for winter. And remembering this, that we are a part of nature. We are not separate from it. We need not fight what is natural. This really helped me. And so then what challenges revealed themselves? So this year, some additional challenges I mentioned with my daughter's school. That was a personal challenge. And then, of course, the election. There were a few weeks where I felt like I couldn't relax at all because I needed to do everything right now. And on the one hand, how do I say this? I'm more relaxed in my state of being concerned and uncomfortable and motivated to act. So the concern itself is not gone. Oh, heck no. But I personally am feeling more empowered and less disenfranchised, less in a constant state of sympathetic nervous system activation. And that feels like it allows me some more space to be productive. And my conversation with Margaret Jacobson really helped me sort of find my way to this space. So if you haven't listened to that episode yet, I highly recommend it. And, figuring out my own flow for activism really helped me find a space where I feel useful, but not overwhelmed. So for winter, let's talk about the season a little bit in general. Winter is the time of kapha, or earth and water, and the qualities at play here in winter are density, moisture, cold. And personally, I found from experiments in years past that I don't feel these particular elements in my own body in this particular climate until the middle of January usually. And until that time, the dryness and mobility of vata are still the most prevalent qualities. So my personal self-care plan is to stick with what's working now until the new year, and then to shift a touch to account for some potential for sluggishness. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in January. That said, winter is the time for rest and to recharge and to renew. Otherwise, I know I can't be pulled into spring like a little chicken. Energetically, although I know the rest, the darkness, and the quiet are necessary, I personally can feel a little anxiety when I subtract too many things. And so I'm working with that this year. One thing that came out of fall was I needed to let go of a few things in order to give time and space for what my current priorities are. And that can lead to a little, just a little catch around my solar plexus. Because there's something where I tell myself I'm not busy enough, when actually that's not the case at all. So I'm excited to kind of share with you how that all shakes out when I'm working in that space of not being too busy. So my current challenges are super dry skin. Oh my goodness. And this almost unquenchable thirst to be in nature. Honestly, if it were doable, I would love to camp for winter solstice, but it's just too cold for the gear that we currently have. And I'm still trying to navigate or locate my personal daily flow now that our Yoga Sutras immersion has ended and I've eliminated a few more drop-in classes from my schedule. I'm trying to re-find my daily rhythm. How I'm caring for myself this winter. Well, I'm keeping all of the regular daily rhythms, the body oiling with sesame oil, the oil pulling, foot massaging, barefoot time outdoors every single day. I'll be eating warm foods and foods that assist in digestion. And also, this feels like the right time of year to spend a lot of time in the kitchen. It just feels correct. So I will be practicing some kitchen magic. And I'll be getting outside a lot. Moving and breathing outside is good. Finally, I'm going to stay off Facebook. I'll do a whole podcast on this, but I deleted my personal profile and it has had significant positive impacts on my overall well-being. And it's a decision I'm really happy with and I'm going to stick with it. My practice goals for winter. So I've already begun this, but after 6 seasons of being very much outward with my energy flow, I need to turn more inward for real, both in practice and in work. And I've cut back on teaching, and I'm adding a few more strategic gatekeepers to my daily flow to ensure maximum time spent in the depths of practice and work. So I'm doing more one-on-one engagements. I'm working on my books. I have 3 books that are complete and ready to be released to the world, and they now require some concentration and attention to move into the publishing phase. Practically speaking, I like to figure out a way to do my asana and movement practice early in the morning at home. Presently, I meditate early, but I do my asana practice later on when the rest of my house is already awake. Since it seems like no matter how deeply they are sleeping, as soon as I unroll my mat or move into one downward facing dog, everyone wakes up and the house takes on a different quality. So I will keep you posted as to how that plays out. I am writing more, and I want to keep that up. And I am painting a little bit more, and I want to add more to that. So how about you? I'm curious about what is pulling you closer or pushing you away. What would you like more of in life and practice? What worked this past season? What maybe didn't work quite as well as you thought it might? What strategies are you changing as you move into the next season? Please keep in touch. Tell me all about it. You can email me at sunroseyoga@gmail.com. And thanks. Thanks so much for listening to today's podcast. Complete show notes are available at yokedpodcast.com. Please feel free to connect by emailing me sunroseyoga@gmail.com. Today's episode is made possible by the Wildcat Yoga Club, our online yoga community. The clubhouse is currently under construction and will open super duper soon. Membership in the club gives you access to over 8 years of past podcasts and all forthcoming audio and video practices, plus lectures, tutorials, video Q&A sessions, and monthly live online sessions, plus discounts on all courses, retreats, and products. All of this for $15 a month or $150 a year. I have had the privilege of connecting with so many brilliant yogis and yoginis around the world over the past decade, and now in the Wildcat Yoga Club, all of you will be connected. It's a dream come true. To receive an invitation, check the show notes.